Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists, to Awesomeology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben, and in this episode, we're here with some advice for our friends, the solopreneurs.
Yes, we are. There are a lot of very smart, very innovative people out there starting new businesses. But how do they connect with their audience to grow a business when it's just them? And maybe also they have a friend who works in marketing somewhere and is giving them advice, which is helpful or not helpful,
Hypothetical.
for example. So, to help out those kinds of wonderful folks, we built a few first steps to get things started, but please know your results may vary.
Oh, that's very appropriate of you. Put the
Yeah.
disclaimer out there.
Disclaimer. It's time for a disclaimer.
As someone who's been experiencing some low back pain recently and seeing every product in the world served to me to help relieve such issues, I'm very familiar with the results may vary sort of experience right now. I've been borderline desperate to try some things that have shown up in my social media feeds. And
Yeah.
my first instinct is, that doesn't work. No, come on. And then as soon as you see results may vary, I'm like, okay,
Okay,
verified.
it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
In
Yeah.
other words,
So,
But
but,
so-
but when we say it,
ours are not that way.
that's not the kind of results
Yeah.
may vary that we're talking
They're going to work for somebody,
about. Right,
just not everybody.
right. Most people, just not.
Right.
Maybe we can even be as confident as
I
say.
feel confident.
So, should we dive into some steps?
Do it.
All right.
Step one.
Step one. So, step one would be to do some research before you start marketing and building your business, and be sure that there's a place in the market for your business. And I would say part of that process, maybe one of the most important parts of that process. So, like step 1.0, the very first thing. Just make sure that what you're doing really aligns with who you are as a person, with something that you care about, something that you're passionate about, maybe aligns with your skills, your expertise, and things like that. Um, Very easy, very tempting to maybe see what somebody else is doing and say, yeah, I can do that too. Or see some cool, sexy business model and try to replicate it yourself, which, I mean, let's be real, is the inspiration for a lot of people to start a business, right? They see someone else doing a thing, or they maybe even work for a company that does something like that or does something similar. And they say, hey, I could do this, or I could do a piece of this by myself, right? Um, just make sure that it's something you want to do. You know
That's
what
a
I
really
mean?
good point. Yeah.
Because it's easy to chase the success of others or chase some cool looking idea or product and try and make it your own, but might experience a rude awakening not too long into the process when you realize, yeah, I actually don't care about this at all. And it's going to be really tough to succeed, especially like in that solopreneur world to succeed like that. If you get lucky and maybe you're developing a business with a whole bunch of other people and maybe they care about the thing more than you do, well, maybe you can lean on their passion and you can stick to the things that maybe you care about more, the business side of it or whatever it might be. But um, if you're doing it by yourself, you got to give a darn, right?
Right. Yeah. You have to want to do it. You have to love it, or whatever is the closest approximate emotion that you want to apply to it.
Right.
And I think especially, looking at the notes that we've put together for today, I really realized I went into this assuming that the people that we're going to be talking to, solopreneurs, started a business from a genuine place. It was a thing they wanted to. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that you could be looking at, I don't know, your brother-in-law. Be like, why has my brother-in-law got a nice watch?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I just want that boat that he had.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start this business that I don't care about to get that boat.
Right. So
Yeah.
don't, number
do the
one,
boat.
don't do that. You don't need the boat that bad.
Yeah. Well, and let me also, since we're just, giving advice where results may vary, another thing that I'd throw out there is like, don't be afraid to try something that's foreign to you, right?
Mhm.
So, you don't need to like fall in love with something before you start a business. Maybe you have an idea and you're open to falling in love with it,
Right,
right? Or
right.
finding passion in it or something and try a thing, and don't be afraid to get far enough into the process to realize like, yeah, this isn't going to work and
Yeah.
bail out, I mean, sure. And disclaimer, might cost you some money, might cost you some time, some sleepless nights, things like that. But um, you know, it might also bring you a lot of success and bring you
Right.
some really cool opportunities, or it evolves into something quite different than what you started.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a really common experience too. So I guess I I say all of this as somebody who I think this happens to me often where I don't know, I see a product or I see an idea or I see even like one of those, like a reel or a TikTok that's like 10 ways to make money online, and like it's totally just, or like 10 sites that'll make you money, without even doing anything, which is like, okay, come on. Really doesn't work like that. But, sometimes they do inspire an idea where it's like, if I could just, connect this thing to that thing, or if I could just develop a solution for that, that some version of what they're trying to tell
Mhm.
me is super free and easy to do could actually be turned into a real business. And 10 times out of 10 so far, as soon as my brain starts rolling down that avenue, I wind up realizing that there's, something that's illegitimate, or it doesn't align with something that I care about,
Right.
or just straight up, I don't have the time to even think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but that's it.
Yeah.
So, all of this, kind of goes into that first step of doing your research. I think everything we've just talked about is part of the research, right? Like
Mhm.
finding something that you care about. But then there's all the other stuff that falls under that bucket of research, coming up with a business plan, and lots of great tools out there to help you develop something really simple or super complex if you want. And which kind of business plan you need might really depend on what the business is or what the business needs. Going to a financial institution looking for a loan, you're probably going to need a pretty in depth and thought out business plan. If you've got all the money you need to buy a little bit of stuff to get you going, you're going to want a plan anyway to keep you on track, but maybe it doesn't need to be as in depth, right? Um, Whichever version of a business plan you're creating, it should include mission, vision, values, which, comes right back to that, doing something that you're passionate about,
Right.
that you care about. And I guess the last thing I'd say is get help from some people. They'll likely be the ones to help you identify like the legal structure that you want to fall under. Are you going to be a sole proprietor? You're going to start an LLC, some kind of uh, corporation, S corp, C corp, something like that. And who's going to help you? Because while you might be a solopreneur, there's going to be plenty of people and organizations and vendors, things like that around you to help you do what you
Right.
do. And that might just be as simple as an attorney to help you start your LLC. Also, there's lots of great free online resources or really low cost online resources to help you do that. Um, or an accountant to help you just make sure that your books are in order, so
Mm.
you're not getting into any trouble or anything. Like those are two that I would say you definitely need to look into before you get started, and that's part of that research step, which I feel like I just gave like 18 steps in the first step.
I think that's what we're gonna do here. We're just gonna squish it all together.
Yeah,
It's one easy
just
step.
one simple
Just
step.
find an accountant and a lawyer and write a business plan.
Yeah, yeah. And so much of this you can do without taking those steps that'll cost you money, right?
Mhm.
And I guess if you had to prioritize everything that I just mentioned, um, I would advise doing it that way, right?
Right.
Because if you start to dig into what you care about and what you want to do, and start to develop a plan around that, like you can realize really quickly, like, yep, I want to go full steam ahead on this thing, or I don't know, maybe I should pump the brakes, or I got to do more research or something. And you can get to that decision before you spend a dollar on creating an LLC or
Right.
hiring an accountant or anything.
Right. Right. The important thing is to start there.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Uh, Side note, you mentioned mission, vision, values. And as soon as you mentioned that, I said to myself, we should just do a whole episode on mission, vision, values.
Sure.
I have uh, other places results may vary. I have so much advice for people on mission, vision, values and what it can be
Mhm.
as a document that really truly leads your business forward
Yeah.
instead of what I think people assume it needs to be,
Yeah.
which is the word synergy repeated 15 times and an
Yeah.
exclamation point, which I think that's ours, right? For
Right.
exclamation, that is
You
our
got it. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah. Not true. It is not that, if you haven't seen any of that stuff from us. But yeah. And I mean, this is commonly the time of year people start sitting down and doing that kind of stuff. I have had a couple of conversations recently with people that have bumped strategic planning into earlier in the year, which I think is a great idea and maybe a trend that's emerging or people are starting to do more and more of, because this time of year, school starts. Next thing you know, it's
Hmm.
Christmas and holiday season, and um,
Right.
squeezing strategic planning and stuff into that can be really busy. But if it's not on people's radar, it should be now. So anyway, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea for a very soon
Yeah,
episode.
we should do that
But
like now.
yeah,
But we're going to finish this one first.
sure, sounds
Okay.
good.
So, step 2, speaking of mission, vision, values, this really relies on you understanding who your audience is. Those mission, that all of that, and what you're doing and how you're doing it relies on the audience that you're ultimately going to sell to, the people that are going to make you money.
Hmm.
Um, you have probably uncovered a lot of things about these people as you're looking at the feasibility of your business and some of those things. And now, step 2 is time to examine not just if they will buy what you're selling, but if they're going to buy it from you.
Yeah.
So this is big boy time, big boy, big girl, big person time,
Yep.
where you figure out who you are and what you do for a living.
Hmm.
And as a one person business, the personality of the business ethics, and the core values of that business all belong to you.
Hmm.
Now, that does not necessarily mean that you can't have aspirational core values
Right.
where
Right.
you say, I am going to run my business this way, even if if I haven't perfectly acted with integrity my whole life, I am going to become a person of integrity.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here's how I'm going to do it. So, really important to define how you want to do business and use that as your guiding principle as you grow and hopefully as you add people and you start to attract both customers and hopefully employees that share that vision of what your business is and what it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
we've talked about you know two words that you mentioned, audience and feasibility. These are things that you have to at least include on some level in step one.
Mhm.
That business plan, again, it might take different shapes, but um, to do some research to understand who your competition is, whether or not the thing that you're hoping to do or create or sell has a place in the market. That has to be understood by you and maybe proven to others if you're really going to go
Mhm.
into business. So this second step, I think, is to dive even deeper into that, to really
Right.
start to understand that and shape your business, shape your products and services in a way that helps you do the things that you said you were going to do in your plan, right?
Yeah. Well, and PS, if you don't do any of that, if you don't know that your business is feasible, you don't know there's a market and an audience, then there's a chance that the next steps you take, where we start really talking about marketing your business, aren't
Hmm.
going to help no matter what.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Valid.
that is where your results may vary.
Yeah. Exactly. Step three, huh?
That's where we're at.
All right. So step three is about really finding where your audience is, where they're buying, and then being there with a message that's going to differentiate you from your competition. So this may be one of my more exciting parts of the process because now we're really digging into um, developing a brand and creating a presence, right? And in today's world, online presence is just crucial. I, Sue, how much I dislike saying always or never, but I might. This might be the closest to
So
saying
excited.
always uh, online presence being important. I mean,
Mhm.
really, like depending on no matter what kind of business you are.
Do you think it would be accurate to say your presence
Yeah,
is
sure.
always important?
100%.
Being careful about your presence.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to not think that online, if that turned out to not be a place you had to be,
Yeah.
fine. It's not your online presence. It is your presence, though,
Right.
as a business.
Yeah. Presence, maybe said another way, perception,
Mhm.
but gosh, not a hill I'm going to die on or anything. And like I said, you know how much I hate to say always and never, but even a business that's solely somehow only built on personal connections, personal
Mhm.
interactions, talking to people like literally face to face, um, someone's going to want to vet you
Right.
and they're going to Google you.
Yeah.
Uh, they're going to see if you have a website or a Google listing. They're going to want to make sure that they're spending their money with a legit organization, right? Like one of those people that you're talking to face is going to do that. And who knows, that might be the one that makes or breaks your business because they could be
Right.
a big fish, So I don't know, but I I'm not trying to start a fight with myself here.
You
I
seem to
promise.
be though.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I'm just checking my my values of
right.
that always and never thing. But
Yeah.
let's just go with like darn near always,
Yeah.
darn near never
Yeah.
can a business go without having a strong online presence. And we're at that part in the process when we're talking about this third step where,
Mhm.
really finding yourself, putting yourself in the place where that audience that you've identified is so they can learn about you, they can buy from you, uh, connect with you, whatever that might be. And again, that almost always happens
Right.
online.
Right. Well, and maybe think about it on the flip side of don't limit yourself. You
Yeah,
you might
right.
you could run a Apple stand
Yep.
and you do not need to have a robust website to run an Apple stand. But I can tell you right now, if you went to your friend's Apple stand and then said to me, "Hey, my friend has the best Apple stand ever. You should go visit them." I'm Googling them.
Yeah. Right.
So, like, cool, they got your money. But if I can't find them, if I can't get an address, if I can't,
Yeah.
I don't know, see
Right.
pictures of their apples, maybe that's not that important to me.
It might be.
Might be.
It might.
But yeah, I'm with
So
you.
now I want a caramel apple and
Yeah.
yeah, the rest of this
What do you
episode
like
shot.
better? Do you like a caramel apple or do you like the candied apple?
Caramel, just because I think it's a little easier to eat or a little less messy. I have
Okay.
this problem when I eat messy food. My only solution is to eat it as quickly as I can so I can clean up. It's the worst.
You just wolf it down?
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
Just make a mess of things as quickly as possible and then
Okay.
clean up. Yeah, it's
Okay.
weird.
Either way, I cut them.
Yeah, that's probably.
So
I should just.
that's how I handle it. Then you can eat it slowly.
Yeah.
Savor it.
This is good advice with good timing because I'm sure apple orchards
Mhm.
are in
Mhm.
our future here as the colors turn. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a retainer.
Oh,
So,
so yeah.
yeah, so I can't just go ahead and bite in because I will then forever have apple in my teeth. I have to be
Right.
careful.
Smart.
Okay. Thank you. The audience needed to know that
Gosh.
too. Anything else in step number 3?
Not for me.
Differentiation. Do you think that
Mm.
people understand differentiation? Is that another whole episode?
Probably a whole nother episode, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your, if you could preview that episode for someone right now, what would you say we'd talk about in an episode about differentiation?
An episode about differentiation. I think I would, as I'm building those notes in my head, I think I would talk about the differentiation between what makes you different and what does not make you different,
Mm.
and how the risk reward, I think, would have to be part of that conversation too,
Sure.
because I think and this is from a narrow segment of businesses that we work with. I think, and this is not criticism to credit unions, because I love them,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that they get the word differentiation. They just apply a completely different meaning to it, which is credit unions are different,
Sure.
which is true,
Mm-hmm.
but how many are there?
Right.
So now you have taken this idea of being different in the market and you have basically placed yourself directly parallel to everyone else who does what you do.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
true
interesting.
differentiation
Yeah.
is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
What makes you distinct? What would make someone buy from you if everything else was the same over your competition?
Love it. We've got some
Okay.
cliff notes for an episode
Yep.
there.
Yep. 2 episodes. Maybe that's what we really are doing here
Right.
is trying to
Welcome
figure
to
out.
our brainstorm session here.
Yeah. What does it cost you? It's free.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
So we're on to step 4. Step 4 is not the final step. And there are probably many more steps than this, especially because we have managed to fit sub steps into the other steps.
Right.
So it's all a
Let's
lot.
be real. We're at about step 20 by now. No.
It's true. It's true. But what step 4 is my way of saying this is going to be an ongoing effort. So just as I have probably said 78 million times before into these microphones, find out who you're talking to, get a message that makes you different, test, do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Until you're either so wealthy you don't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
Or you give up.
Right. Yeah. Right.
There's probably middle ground there, but just assume that you're going to get so wealthy
Right.
you can't try it anymore.
So step 4 in a word is testing. Is that what you're saying?
Testing, try some things, track the results, see what works, do it all again.
Yeah.
I think immediately when we think about solopreneurs, it becomes a much more complicated conversation because number one, we can't, as a marketing agency, we can compare them to their peer group in some way, but because their business relies on the unique person who is running it and possibly on the unique type of business, it really is a much better process, I think, to do the thing, see how it works, and rely on your own data rather than just hearing what other people are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for someone who's running a solo business or a small business, you could go to a chamber meet and greet. You could go to a lot of these places and hear from people who are also running the same size business.
Yeah.
But chances are it's a different kind of business.
Right.
Chances are they're running it differently.
Right.
So it really, I mean, it is at once a really exciting opportunity to build something that comes from nothing, to not get stalled by feeling like you have to have X number of best practices, like maybe you do in a larger industry, and only follow what those best practices are. So you can be a little guerrilla, you can be a little rogue and do things how you want to.
Yeah.
But until you find someone that is running things precisely the way you are, it's untested and untried.
Yeah. And heads up, you're probably not going to find that person, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, everything that you just said, like, is exactly, achieving or getting you to the achievement of the thing that you led with, which was differentiation, right?
Right.
By, your way of doing things or some things that you learn along the way by testing and doing might be how you discover your differentiator. It's really interesting, like now that we're to this step and thinking of what we talked about so far in this episode, how like different people, different personality types really could find like joy in maybe the entire process, but more realistically, probably in certain steps along the way, right? Like personally, I know that I probably would get most excited about everything on the front end, like the planning, the more visionary stuff, and um, a lot of ideation and open to a ton of possibilities. The like bringing it into focus, some of the testing and doing is stuff that I mean I get a lot of joy out of that stuff too, but it's probably less attractive to me. So while I can totally see others who are like, oh my God, like, I don't want to plan anymore. Like, can I just
Right.
like make something? So, so maybe step X that fits in along the way is being comfortable with like knowing who you are, knowing maybe which part of the process you're going to enjoy, and then using that as like a lens to look through or something to check yourself along the way. Like
Right.
if you come to step 2 and you're starting to do some audience research and stuff like that, and you're realizing that I don't know, you're getting bored or you're struggling with it or something, Might just be because you don't care about that stuff as much. You just want to
Mhm.
like build something. So you want to get to step 4 as quickly as possible. Heads up, you can't skip those steps,
Right.
but just know that step 4 is coming.
Yeah.
You got to put that work in and get to the stuff that you love to do.
Yeah. Power through it.
And if you're someone like me, don't forget about steps 2, 3, and 4.
Mhm.
It's easy to sit there and plan, and it's not easy. It might bring you more joy than other steps or whatever,
Right.
but when you're done with it, you gotta build something too.
Yeah. And uh that is, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but I think I am exactly opposite of you with that. Like,
Yeah,
you please tell me what you think you want to try and do,
yeah.
and let's frickin' do
Let's actually do
it.
it. Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes. Good balance there for sure.
yeah, but and I think the meta point that we could make here as solopreneurs are thinking about this, there's also a chance that they're not going to want to do any of this
Yeah.
because they want to, like, they got in business to sell engraved knives, right?
Wow. Very specific.
They want to, I don't know why, but they have a shop and they're going to sell like hunting knives and fancy knives and church knives. I don't
Church.
know, dress knives. Because that's what they love and that's what they're good at.
Right.
And none of this stuff appeals to them. And they should power through it.
Hmm.
It doesn't make it less important.
Right.
Um, but do lean on the people that can help you. Back to your point, we were talking in step 1, lean on the people that can help you get through it
Yeah.
because it is important.
Right. Yeah. And worth it. You'll be
Yeah.
better on the back end of that for
Right.
sure.
Right. And yeah, secretly there's a hit of dopamine when you do that testing and find out you did the right thing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah. So don't worry. There's going to be some benefits.
Right.
You're going to hit some benefits here, buddy, with your knives.
So we've got all these steps. Uh, I know that you reached out to a friend of the podcast who's a solopreneur themselves, and shout out to Jimmy from Chicago. And in the process of starting a business, what other questions did Jimmy have to help us reinforce everything we're talking about today for solopreneurs?
uh, so he sent me a number of questions, and I want to disclose to you that he assumed when I texted him, I did not realize he would assume this, but he assumed that I asked a number of people
Wow.
because he responded to me in another message saying, I hope you answer some of my questions. It's cool if you don't. You probably got a lot of great questions from a lot of people. So this is my way of telling him, no, I only asked you.
Yeah.
And they were great questions.
And you're welcome.
I got a lot of great questions, enough that I am not including them all.
Perfect.
But let's go through some of them.
Cool.
Can a business use just social media to do their marketing?
I mean, technically, yes, right? Like I can't just give you a blanket no to that, but should you? Probably not. There's other places you should be. I mean, at the bare minimum, like if like you want to do social media because you're active on it or something's told you that that's where
Mhm.
your audience is, that's great. If you're going to do that, like, I mean, create a Google listing too, right? I mean, at least
Mhm.
have, be found via the biggest search engine in the world. So like it's really easy right off the bat to be like, we should at least do those two things. So to be as simple as I can to answer the question, I would say no, you can't because you should at least do those two things and probably should do 4 or 5 other things without getting into a list of all the possibilities that you should do to market your business. But I suppose, yeah, one could use exclusively social media.
One
And
could.
and really, to the point of like having a Google listing being the next thing that I'd do or that I'd suggest, or at least the first thing that comes to mind today. Um, Having a Facebook page is something that's searched by Google, so you
Mhm.
could be found that way for sure. If let's say Facebook is the only thing that you did or something, but we we also just know that there's a certain kind of people that are on every social media platform. And my guess is most businesses aren't serving one exclusive demographic that could be found only on one
Right.
platform. So even like to say social media marketing, like you should probably be on more than one platform. So it's I don't mean to make the answer more complex than it needs to be, but I guess the short version is probably not. Like
So
high
when
probability.
you hear that question, is your assumption that that is eliminating a website? Because
Yeah, I suppose so.
my answer would have been like, well, maybe if you also have a website, because
Mm.
otherwise, what are you?
Like where are you going to be found
Yeah,
kind
what are
of
you
thing.
doing?
Yeah.
In the nicest way. That sounded really mean.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, but where are you? But that's because I think so much in terms of where does this post go to?
Right.
But we also come from a business and uh, a type of organization that predates social media.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the website was the first for,
Ware.
foray into the internet that Al Gore invented,
Yeah.
and social media came second. So it is the logic for me always feels like we're trying to get people to the site.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
and not all business works that way.
Right.
And if you're building it from scratch, you might only have capacity to start with a Google listing and social media.
hmm
Um, and then if you're selling something, uh, if you want to sell online, then it becomes a question of where are you selling things? Because you have to understand that that is part of your marketing as well.
Yeah.
So then it's not only is it not good to not just do it on social media, it is best to understand that that all needs to work in concert.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm probably just like way too biased to answer this question because our business today and clients that we help, like, we don't have anyone where digital and online presence like isn't important, which does mean like cross platform, cross channel,
Mhm.
not just social media, but website, search engine
Mhm.
optimization, all of those things that, are important to work with each other.
Yeah.
But
We
again, I
do
guess back to the sorry.
we do have people that don't think it's important.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess back to like the root question and like the most simple answer that I could give, um, trying to stay objective. I also know that there are businesses today that don't have a website, aren't on social media, don't have a Google listing, and they're in business,
Mhm.
because either their community, is connected in more traditional ways, and maybe the service that they provide is not dependent on any of that technology, and
Right.
they can do it. It's just they're they're in the big or the little minority,
The small
the
minority,
small minority.
big minority.
Yeah, right. That's what I was gonna say was big minority. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. What are other types of marketing that are also inexpensive and can make an impact?
Oh, look at that. We've talked about a couple of them
How about
already.
it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would add streaming to the list. I think
sure.
right now streaming is still both streaming video and streaming music and podcasts are still
Mhm.
in what I would consider affordable. So you
Yeah,
can get a really nice campaign under, a single bill
right.
for a few weeks and so I still consider that pretty affordable.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, Now this may come at a cost because there's, some might call it sweat equity. Some people might just translate it to time being money, but being a member of your community, being
Mhm.
present, giving back with your time or your talents, I think is also a way that, if there's no monetary cost, you're not writing a check, you're not spending any money, but you're there representing your business. Um, I think might be one of the most impactful and inexpensive,
Yeah.
you know, not to, I mean, there's a cost to your time. There's just no way around that. If you're involved in things that are taking you away from doing the work that your business does, there's an opportunity cost there for sure. But at the same time, you're probably doing some of the most important marketing that one can do, which is being a good citizen.
That's a really good point. Another thing that comes to mind knowing that Jimmy's Business is Comics
Sure.
is trade shows
Yeah.
and comic shows, things like,
Right.
I mean, and any business that would have that type of thing. Um, I think anytime you go and represent your business, you should consider it through the lens of it being a marketing opportunity.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think once we start talking about going to a convention, that does become uh it can be cost prohibitive, I think.
For sure.
Um if time, if not just,
Yeah.
the cost to have a booth, but
Yeah.
that is another way to that is certainly marketing
Right.
and still less expensive than a Super Bowl ad
Right.
or
Right.
or
Yeah.
even just a regular TV ad, to be clear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we're fortunate to have the support to be able to do some, industry specific events that aren't cheap. That really do get us right in front of
Mhm.
the exact people we want to talk to. But not only do they cost money for us to, just simply be there, like you said, the time and the preparation. You got to put some thought into what you're going to do
Mhm.
while you're there. um, and then what to do with all the contacts that you make and all the people that you meet like that all of that takes time for sure. But there are, I guess, if we can just lump them into the category of trade shows, there are more local events and things that
Mhm.
sometimes are totally free. As far as like registration or whatever, it's simply just book your spot, or it's super affordable to just have a space there. So those might be opportunities to really get out there as well. And all of that said, I want to just make sure, because I imagine that most of our listening audience are folks that, yeah, they have a need for those kind of in person sort of events, but it's 2023. You
Mhm.
just can't deny how important it is for a strong online presence and the ability for people to find you.
Right.
Um, Without being anywhere physically, because it's just it's just how the world works today.
Mhm.
Like how many times today have we said we're just gonna Google you,
Yeah.
and if you're not easily findable in that way, you're probably missing out on a lot. So,
Yeah. Can't underline that enough, I
yeah,
don't think. Next question.
cool.
Apart from sales data, what are the most important metrics to look at? Is it SEO? Is it Google Analytics? Maybe things that you can easily see, like followers and post interactions. What are the things to look at?
Great question. Um, I mean, I think like you've listed two great ones already. Search engine performance, Google Analytics, um, anything connected to your online reputation, whether that's like your reviews at different sites, maybe Google, but social media platforms, depending on what your business is. If you're a restaurant, like you probably care a lot more about your Yelp score than another
Mhm.
business does. So I think there's a lot of it. It's very specific to your business, I guess, is the point I'm getting to. But um, there's a lot of other information that's important related to sales data, and that data might be, especially in the early phases of a business, if you're a solopreneur, might be more important than sales data.
Mhm.
Because sometimes it takes time to build that up, right?
Right.
And if all that you're looking at is the bottom line every month, it might be really easy to get discouraged and stop. But if you're seeing like holy cow, I'm building a community here, or
Mhm.
people tend to really like what I'm doing, and referrals are happening and that kind of stuff, I just got to stay patient, keep grinding, and it'll come around.
Yeah.
um and yeah, eventually, like, you're gonna have to look at your sales data too, and you're gonna need to pay the bills and all that. So don't mean to discount the value of that, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I am probably not using these phrases exactly correctly, but I do think it's the difference between like leading indicators and lagging indicators.
Mm,
So to me, I would look at things like starting with post reactions and shares and likes and things like that at the very top of, like, at the far end of the leading indicators, moving down toward online reviews and some of those things where it really takes more for that person to know your business and have interacted with it. And I would consider those the leading indicators.
Hmm.
As those continue to grow, you're going to see sales data, and your sales results improve.
Yeah.
Um, and if you understand that the like everything needs to grow for the business to grow,
Hmm.
but to really build a robust relationship with your audience and to be making sure that you are getting things, getting them to a place where they can leave feedback, that you're responding to feedback, and watching all of those tick up, 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 up is going to lead to sales. So, especially, I don't know if we've mentioned online presence today yet, but
Yeah. Right.
especially as people are looking at your online presence, and if your reviews are good, you're more likely to get their business.
Yeah.
So,
And be found. Yeah.
right. With people going to AI for answers to their questions, what should business blog posts focus on?
Mm. Interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe dancing around a clear answer, but if the AI that we're talking about, I don't know if there's elephant in the room on this question, but if we're talking about Chat GPT, but also a lot of AI that's used in a similar way is scraping information from websites, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not getting to a specific answer for what blog post should be on, but hopefully it's on stuff that's specific, relevant, maybe new and genuine
Mhm.
content that's like related to who you are, what you do, and all of
Mhm.
those things, so that if by some chance your website is the one that's getting scraped for some of that knowledge, it's a source for
Right.
real information. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't know if I'm like confusing the question with,
I don't think
yeah,
so. I don't think so. Maybe.
yeah, maybe.
We'll find out.
Well, yeah, we'll check. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jimmy will give us some feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
How about
think
you?
um well, I'm glad you asked because I have many thoughts on blog posts. I think number 1, um and I am not in any way an expert on doing this yet, but I think as we think about content that we're creating for businesses and the challenge that our direct competition can just go to Chat GPT and say, "Write me a blog post."
Yeah.
I think that raises a couple of interesting paths for us. Number 1, thinking about how we can utilize Chat GPT for our advantage
Hmm.
and in a better way than people are just going to go to it and say, "Give me a blog post." So, how can it enhance what we do? How can it drive our creativity? How can it give us new ideas or new insights, which we then can intelligently go and research to make sure that we are giving the best information we have?
Yeah.
Um, and then what do we have to offer as human beings that ChatGPT will be hopefully years away
Yeah.
from being able to offer? So this circles us back around to the personality of your business, the things that make it unique, the differentiators, the things that make you unique, your thoughts, opinions, charm, and bringing that, uh, and um, and thinking about really what that strategy is for your blog. Are you doing it? Why are you writing a blog? Are you doing it to be able to get return visits to your website? And then you need a good blog.
Hmm. Like
Uh,
to create a follower, you're saying? Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. If you're looking for repeatability, which if you're in sales, you're looking for repeatability,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Usually, um, not too many people have a product that you just buy one time.
Right.
Maybe the knife guy
Yeah.
that I made up.
Yeah. Best knives ever. Never last knives you'll ever buy.
Right, exactly. So you want to bring people back, and you still have to give them a reason to come back.
Yeah.
And if I think that something like Chat GPT takes us down the same rocky path that a lot of these other resources that have been available for a long time, like buying blogs or,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I think it's the same risk, which is now you've got the same stuff that everybody else has.
Right. Yeah.
And so you've done it at half measure. And why are people coming to you?
Yeah. Said another way, you've gotten a head start, but you have to understand you've gotten the same head start that everybody else
Right.
has, right? So, because I do think that there is an advantage to buying a bunch of blog content. There's an advantage of using content that your partners are putting out
Hmm.
there for you already, or getting a head start using ChatGPT, right? There's a clear advantages to that. You just can't stop at that like
Right.
initial point of access,
Right.
because then yeah, you're going to become irrelevant, or you're just going to be mixed into the wash with everyone else.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question.
Last question. Holy cow.
I know, right? Is a podcast necessary for a small business? Yes,
Yes.
obviously. But no new podcasts.
Right.
This one, and then we're cutting it off.
Right. Yeah. So real answer,
Hmm.
no.
Yeah.
It's
But
not.
maybe.
It's yeah, but
Depends
maybe.
on your business.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Um, it's really tough for me as someone who is a regular podcast consumer to like imagine a business that couldn't benefit from one or
Hmm.
use one, like especially because there are so many different formats, like sure, a podcast is the delivery method via audio file or a video file, right?
Hmm.
But um, there's podcasts out there that the episodes are 2.5 minutes. There's podcasts out there that the episodes are 60 plus minutes,
Right.
right? And then there's episodes out there that are educational and informational. There's episodes out there that are just completely random and
Right.
have no theme to them at all, right? So there's just so much possibility with that channel that I really can't imagine any business where I couldn't say like, yeah, like you could totally have one.
Yeah.
The word necessary in the question is the reason why I say no.
Yeah.
I can also say to pretty much every business, like you don't have to have one. A whole
Hmm.
lot of other ways that you can do to get information. A lot of other ways that you can get information out there, um, and you'd
Yeah.
be kind of foolish to ignore a super fast growing platform that a lot of people are on, and that a lot of people have plenty of opportunity in daily life to consume, whether
Right.
it's drive time, mowing the lawn, doing laundry around the house, whatever. Like there's just so many moments where it's easy to have the earbuds in and consume.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. And I think an important point to a button to put on that is I hope I'm not speaking out of turn when I speak for us and say we do one because we want to. We like to
Yeah,
do it.
for sure. Yeah.
So is it necessary? Is it the thing that drives our business? No.
Right.
But we love to do it.
Right. For sure.
And I like to think that I derive as much benefit from talking through some of these things and
Hmm.
having to sit down and write down what is my opinion. Maybe this is pulling back the curtain too much on our process, but we pick a thing we're going to talk about and then we sit down and write out
Yeah.
what and really define here's an area where we have expertise, here's an area where we would do more research on.
Yeah.
And these conversations are immensely beneficial to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also is a way for us to humanize ourselves and the
Right.
company and show, I think that our topics and our discussions are a way to show that too, where, we've certainly had some topics where we aren't the experts on, but we're curious or they're,
Mhm.
somehow related to our work. We did a whole episode on AI and what that might mean for creatives and stuff. And so, yeah, to your point, like just to talk through some of that stuff, um, got me thinking about how AI might impact our business and even more importantly, how we can activate it to
Right.
help our business. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah. And
Mhm.
again, the does every marketing agency have to have a podcast? Nope. But I think it fits our business model. It definitely fits who we are as people, and it
Mhm.
brings us joy doing it. So, gosh, if we
How
haven't,
much? What else can you ask?
right, yeah,
Right.
and if that hasn't just brought us right back to step one of this whole thing, right? Like find something you're passionate about, and
Mhm.
I think we've got a lot, and sharing that this way by doing a podcast is just really logical for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, good thing we agree. We can keep this
It
thing
would be a
going.
little weird if
Yeah.
we didn't at this point.
What would you have done if I would have just said, you know what, Sue? I
Eh,
hate
I
doing these things.
freaking hate it. I found I found a different co-host.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I've done it before.
got it. I'll do it again,
I'll do it
Bauer.
again.
Sweet. Well, hey, that was fun. Thanks
Yep.
for the questions, Jimmy. Hope you're listening.
He's listening.
Yeah. Better be listening.
Better be listening.
All right, time to wrap up, huh?
Mhm.
All right, we're going to go into our something awesome segment where we share recommendations for awesome things that have happened to us, great experiences we want to share. And so, gosh, I think I'll make a promise. This will be the last episode where I like milk the Oppenheimer experience that I've been talking about. I feel like my last three something awesomes have been somehow related to that movie.
The next podcast, you're just going to bring in the guy from Peaky Blinders
Yeah,
and
exactly.
be like, what about this guy?
Killian, hey, welcome to the show. But my recommendation is a book called American Prometheus, which is what the movie was adapted on or modeled after, whatever you want to say, right? And it's basically Oppenheimer's biography. Now, full disclosure, I have no idea how long the book was, but the audiobook was 27 hours long. So listening to it at 1.25 speed, I think I got through it in about, I don't know, quick math, 22 hours or something. But luckily, when I was able to check it out, I had a lot of driving ahead of me. So it was actually pretty quick to get through those 22 hours. And then, yeah, I would listen to it while I'm mowing the lawn and all that stuff. You're right. But anyway, the movie is great. I know everybody's probably sick of me talking about that. The music, it's all just awesome. But the book, it's probably I don't remember the last biography that I read, so it felt kind of like fresh content to me or a
Mhm.
different kind of content because it's been a long time since I read a biography. I think the last one I read was um, Steve Jobs's. But anyway, just gave me like first off a whole lot of that additional insight that you get from a book that
Mhm.
winds up getting turned into a movie, and just an amazingly interesting guy. I'm always just kind of dumbfounded by people that are incredibly smart, like their whole lives, including at a very young age, which Robert Oppenheimer was. So just hearing his story, his upbringing, kind of like being able to do it in reverse order, seeing the movie and then reading the book, like it was kind of like I was watching the movie all over again too. And it was cool to do it so quickly after seeing the movie that I could kind of like almost build an additional movie in my head as I was reading it, or listening to it because I did the audiobook. But um, uh, and I guess the last thing I'll say is just this new or like kind of renewed appreciation for history. I think Oppenheimer and the atom bomb and World War II and all like that all happened way before I was around. I certainly learned about it in high school, and that was probably where it stopped.
Mhm.
Besides maybe other movies based around those events, but um, just to be able to consume someone's story that lived through that and played such a pivotal role in it, and to get that information in a way that's truly based in fact and a lot of fact checking and in a way that it's all believable and not
Mhm.
biased. You learn a lot of the good about Robert Oppenheimer. You learn a lot about the bad about Robert Oppenheimer. So to hear the whole story um, was just it was really cool. And uh, while I liked the audiobook, it almost made me like the movie even more because there was so much about the movie that was like right on point
Mhm.
with his biography and with the stories that were confirmed by other people that were around him and living at the same time. So um, one last time, check out Oppenheimer. It's probably not in too many theaters anymore, but whenever it is available for rent or purchase, get it. It's so good. Okay, I'm done.
Either watch it or Ben is going to bring this back next time too.
That's right.
And we're going to have to hear more about it.
No, I made a promise. I won't talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay. You're a man of your word.
That's right.
That's what I like about you.
Thanks.
So my recommendation, speaking of podcasts, which we're not, but we're on one. So
Right. Yeah.
is a new podcast I started listening to. You might like it. And it's called Strike Force 5. Have you heard of Strike Force 5 yet?
I hadn't until I saw the show notes.
And then you
And
clicked
at
on
that
the
point,
link.
I added it to my library. So
Okay.
I will be listening soon because I
Yeah.
see it's a limited series. So they're probably not doing it for too long.
Right. I think they hope so because Strike Force 5 is a podcast that Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver are all doing together.
Like Mount Rushmore.
Right. Mount Rushmore of late night.
Yeah.
And they have sponsors. And the money they are making from their sponsors is going to pay their staff during the WGA strike.
Nice.
Which is very cool,
That
which
is
is
cool.
why it's Strike Force 5.
Right.
So I've listened to, I think there's only about 3 or 4 episodes out right now.
Okay.
So I've listened to the first 2, and it is just really a fun conversational type. You made the point of there's all different kinds of podcasts.
Yeah.
This is just very stream of consciousness, very fun to listen. These are, I think, some of the funniest people on TV.
Yeah.
And to know that the money that they are making from this podcast is going to support their staff when their staff can't work.
Yeah.
Is an additional little cool thing.
Right.
In my mind.
Yeah.
So
love it.
Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah. I'm
check
excited.
it out.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Thank you, as always, for joining us. You can always catch up on your favorite podcast app or by finding our podcast on our website at exclamationqso.com/blog.
Thanks for tuning in. Be awesome and see you next time.
The Osmology Podcast is a production of Exclamation Services. Thanks to Nick Mulliver for sound production and Kylie Ganther for our cover artwork.
Executive producers are me, Ben Bauer, and my friend Suzanne Campbell.